Hey guys, Rob from Epic Dungeon Tales, and today we're going to look at making these sort of country fence type modular terrain. They're really useful for the farm field tutorial that will be coming up soon, and yeah, they turned out really cool. Okay, so first thing I do is I cut up some strips of balsa wood to use as like the fence posts and the fence cross beams. And I've skipped ahead a little bit, but effectively I'm using the MDF bases that I normally use, and then I'm using some strips of balsa just cut down to about 1 inch and just glued them on, and then I've just sort of worked them with a scalpel just to round off the edges and cut some little gouges and things into them, and you'll see them in a second. So you can see how I've sort of cut a couple of them up and broken them down. With the balsa wood, what I'm doing is I'm actually slicing it in half because it makes a really nice effect if you put 2 pieces on either side as opposed to just down one side. I think that looks really nice, so that it's not necessarily accurate, but it looks really good when it's finished. Now I've got my 2 pieces, and then I just start to bevel the edges on them with the scalpel. Just cutting off little sort of gouges and not being too accurate with it, because the rougher you are, the sort of more authentic it looks. Just doing the same with the other bit now. You can see it's got those like nice little gouges in it, and then I just smooth it all down with a nail file. And then the next thing to do is just to attach them to the posts. I use these little spring clamps as well, which is quite useful. Here they are. So yeah, just put a little bit of glue on each one and then just hold them across. And then when you want to do the other side, you've just got to sort of take the clamps back off, but they should hopefully have held the wood relatively sort of strong so that you can then just remove them, put more on, and then put it over both of them at the same time. And if not, you could just reposition them and put a little bit more glue on them. Sorry, I went out of frame a bit here, but I'm just putting those spring clamps on. Getting the first one on is usually the tricky bit. And there it is. So that's like the main structure, and it's really easy to build. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to add some little piles of rubble. So what I've done with the base is I've used that MDF base, and then I've put some sand on it like I've done in all my previous videos. And now I'm just putting some bigger rocks down just to add a little bit more detail. It looks really fiddly using the tweezers, but I actually think it's a lot easier than trying to just use your hands, especially if you've got like fat thumbs like I have. Yeah, it's just a lot quicker. Just place them on, push them in, and then just do that with all of the little rocks. You don't want too many sort of rock piles. You want to try and just spread it out a little bit. Maybe have a couple here and then 5 somewhere else, just to make it look varied. If you have like 4 stones every single inch, it's going to look a bit too uniform. Okay, so this is the bit where we're going to add the sand. So just add a load of glue on and then spread it out with a paintbrush. I like to use a soft paintbrush because it doesn't, if you accidentally hit the rocks, it tends not to move them, as opposed to a stiffer one. Get that covered, and you can see I've put this like plastic sheet, piece of plastic underneath, so when I pour the sand I can just pick it up, bend it, and then tip it back into the tub. I do the same with the static grass on this tutorial and on the farm fields tutorial. I find it really useful because it's quite tough, but it doesn't tear, but also it bends really easy and it picks up really easy. Whereas sometimes cardboard, what I found is picking up the edges, because it's a bit stiffer, it kind of flicks all the sand or static grass off. And there's our basic structure. So we're sort of pretty much done with the build, to be honest. Here's another one I've done where the fence has been broken down in the middle, so I've just kind of had cut some shorter planks and then just had them pointing down and things like that, which looks really cool. And one thing to think is when I start putting down the static grass is I try not to put any in that middle section between those two fences, because they've likely been broken down because people are walking through or climbing on them, so people are still going to be walking through there. So don't put any greenery down, try and keep it brown, because it'll make it look like a path that people are walking and using. So all I'm doing here is I'm just covering this in black, just to give it a black coat. There they are. Then next I take a light brown, a sort of slightly richer brown, more reddy brown, and just painting the base. I just paint all of that, even the rocks, because I'll pick the rocks out at a later date. Just get that covered. And don't worry about getting any on the post too much, because we'll cover that with a lighter brown as well. Not the same one, a slightly different brown, but this reddy brown works really well for earth. And then if you've got a nice highlight on it, it will really pick out those details. Yeah, pretty good. So that's them. I've picked out the stone colour, you can see. And the other thing I did, which really helps to bring it out, is add a dry brush on them of a light brown, very light, sort of almost like a tan colour. And I did that over the whole piece, but because we use those different base colours, it works really well. So effectively I've stuck on some clump foliage as well, just fairly standard, just picked off some clump foliage, stuck them on, and now I'm applying the static grass. And this static grass applicator works really well. I got it off of eBay. It just looks really nice, the effect that you get by combining all of the little pieces, like little stones, foliage, sort of the clump foliage, and the static grass, and then the grass tufts. You can see it just looks really cool. And there they are. So the glue's not dried yet, so you still get the white, and you can see where I've done the path going through the broken one. And then the final thing I've done is I've just added some little red flower tufts. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the video, guys, and yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe, and hopefully there'll be the farm field tutorial video up shortly. Thanks for watching.